The Closed Door 1. Suburban Stillness. The story opens in the early morning, sunlight streaming into a pristine, elegantly decorated house in an affluent suburb of a large American city. Emily, in her late 30s, wakes before dawn. Before anyone else stirs, she moves quietly through the silent house, performing her morning rituals, brewing coffee, preparing breakfast, and setting out clothes for the family. The neighborhood is quiet, marked by manicured lawns and the occasional sound of distant dog walkers. Despite the beauty outside, there's a sharp contrast within her home. 2. The rituals of a perfect wife. Emily's actions are meticulous, almost compulsive. She checks off mental lists, ensuring everything is perfect for her husband Matthew and her mother-in-law Margaret, who moved in after her husband's illness. She gently places breakfast on the table. Matthew prefers black coffee and eggs over easy. Margaret likes her toast cut into triangles. Emily never eats until everyone else is served. The kitchen is spotless, everything in its assigned place. Emily has learned that anything less than perfection invites criticism. 3. Subtle contempt. The family gathers for breakfast. Matthew, sharply dressed for his downtown job, barely glances at Emily. Margaret's greetings are curt. Small comments cut deep. Margaret criticizes the toast. Matthew reminds Emily of an event she forgot last month. There's an unspoken expectation for Emily to fade into the background. She absorbs the coldness with practiced silence, only answering when directly addressed. Emily's attempts at small talk are dismissed. The mood is heavy, but nothing overtly hostile. The cruelty is casual, hidden under the surface. 4. Echoes of loneliness. After her family leaves, Emily stands alone in the kitchen. The silence is oppressive. She washes dishes, scrubs countertops, arranges flowers. No one notices. She looks out the window at neighbors chatting or jogging, life happening all around her, but always just beyond her reach. Flashes of memories surface. Laughter from earlier years, brief moments of warmth with Matthew. Those days now feel foreign, almost like they belonged to someone else. 5. A day defined by others. Emily's day is dictated by routines. Grocery shopping, caring for Margaret, running Matthew's errands. She gently navigates Margaret's passive-aggressive remarks about how things were done differently in Margaret's own marriage. At the market, she exchanges polite hellos with acquaintances, but keeps real conversations at arm's length. She has become practiced at hiding her sadness. 6. Seeking approval, never finding it. Emily tries to please both Matthew and Margaret. She sets reminders, bakes Matthew's favorite dessert, schedules Margaret's doctor appointments. She recalls moments where genuine appreciation was replaced by thinly veiled disappointment. A raised eyebrow for the wrong brand of detergent. A sigh when she interrupts a conversation. Each evening, she waits anxiously for their reactions, hoping for a word of kindness, but is usually met with indifference or mild annoyance. 7. The unseen battle. Alone at night, Emily reflects in her journal. She writes her dreams, her doubts, her longing for affection and respect. She doesn't confide in friends, fearing judgment or gossip. On social media, she posts curated photos, maintaining an illusion of happiness. As she closes her bedroom door, she feels the weight of another day unlived for herself. 8. The door that separates. The chapter closes with Emily standing at the threshold of their bedroom. The heavy door, a metaphor for the emotional distance inside her home. She listens to Matthew and Margaret's laughter downstairs. A reminder that she will always be on the outside, looking in. Emily resolves to keep trying, clinging to hope that with enough effort, the approval she seeks might one day come, unaware that the seeds of change are quietly being sown within her. Children of the family. 1. The shifting center of the home. This chapter opens with the sound of Emily quietly calling her children, Sophie, age 10, and Ben, age 7, to get ready for school. Their laughter, small squabbles, and innocent questions fill the house with a warmth that stands in contrast to the chilly interactions among the adults. Emily's relationship with her children is gentle and nurturing, though tinged by her own anxieties. She takes extra care to shield them from the strain between her and Matthew, as well as the sharp remarks from their grandmother, Margaret.
We won't let you down.
Family routines revolve around the children's schedules. Breakfast, tailored to their tastes, checking homework, searching for a lost sock, all done between Emily's internal reminders about keeping the peace. 2. Emily in the eyes of others. While dropping the kids at school, Emily exchanges brief greetings with other parents. She is well-mannered, well-dressed, by all outward appearances, the image of a successful suburban mom. Other mothers sometimes invite Emily for coffee or book club meetings. She always finds gentle excuses to decline, wary of letting anyone too close. Flashbacks reveal a time when she was more open, before her world grew so small. At school events, like recitals or soccer games, she cheers enthusiastically, but never lingers. She feels like an outsider, never quite belonging. 3. The children's inner worlds. Sophie is bright and sensitive, aware of the tension around her. She often tries to mediate, offering to help Emily or make her grandmother smile. Ben, meanwhile, is energetic and blissfully oblivious, focused on friends and weekend cartoons. Small moments reveal cracks in the family's facade. Sophie hesitates before asking to invite a friend over, recalling Margaret's strictness and Matthew's irritation at noise. A subtle scene shows Sophie comforting Ben after a harsh comment from their grandmother, a preview of how even the youngest sense the unease at home. 4. Under the watchful eye of the neighborhood. The family's suburban community is tightly knit and observant. Emily is conscious of being watched and judged by mothers at the PTA, by retired neighbors who comment on her garden, by friends on social media. Gossip occasionally floats her way, innocuous on the surface, but Emily senses when questions about Matthew's late nights or Margaret's sharp tongue are barbed. 5. The Masks Family's Girl. Emily hosts a playdate for the children, pouring energy into snacks, games, and making their home look cheerful and inviting. For a few hours, laughter fills the air, and Emily finds relief in the company of her children's friends. After the playdate, when the house is silent again, she overhears Margaret criticize her, trying too hard. Emily retreats inward, the happiness from the afternoon fading quickly. 6. Hidden turbulence. That afternoon, a minor crisis. Ben gets into a fight at school over someone teasing him about his serious grandmother. The school counselor contacts Emily, stirring her worries about what the children are absorbing from the household atmosphere. At dinner, Matthew expresses annoyance at having to deal with school issues, casting blame on Emily for coddling the kids. Margaret laments that children these days lack discipline. Emily tries to deflect, but her efforts are met only with sighs. 7. Emily's isolated struggle. Late at night, Emily reads bedtime stories to Sophie and Ben. Quietly, Sophie asks why Dad never reads to them, or why Grandma never says, "I love you." Emily avoids the question with a reassuring smile, but the pain is visible in her eyes. In her own room afterward, Emily pores over parenting articles, desperate to find the right balance, to protect her children from the coldness she faces herself. 8. The Unseen Suffering. The chapter closes with a quiet montage. Emily watching her children sleep, gently smoothing Ben's hair, and tucking Sophie's stuffed animal closer. She makes a silent promise to shield them from the conflict, even as she feels herself growing weary. The love for her children becomes the force that keeps her moving forward, unseen, uncelebrated, but enduring. The beginning of the collapse. 1. The sense of something off. The chapter opens with Emily noticing subtle disruptions in her carefully orchestrated routines. Prescription bottles are out of place. An important mail that she sorts each day is missing or already opened. Matthew is increasingly absent, coming home later and making vague excuses about urgent deadlines or unexpected client dinners. His phone buzzes with late-night messages he quickly hides. Margaret's attitude becomes even frostier, her comments more pointed, almost as if she knows something Emily doesn't. 2. Unfamiliar papers and odd transactions. While organizing household files, Emily stumbles on bank statements and legal documents with amounts and names she doesn't recognize. She hesitates but makes discreet calls to their bank and accountant, only to be told to check directly with Matthew for any clarification, as she is not listed as a primary contact on several important accounts, a fact that unsettles her. The sense of exclusion grows. Later, an envelope addressed to Matthew arrives from a law firm. Emily sets it aside, but the gravity in Matthew's reaction when he sees it leaves her uneasy. 3. The strain of secrets. Emily feels her confidence slipping as she notices a significant change in Matthew's demeanor. He becomes short-tempered and dismissive, brushes off her questions, and starts locking his office door at home. The warmth that once existed in their interactions has dissipated, replaced by tension and the constant sense that she's walking on eggshells. Sophie and Ben begin to sense the shift too. When Emily tries to hold the family together with shared dinners and weekend outings, Matthew repeatedly finds excuses not to join, citing work emergencies.
Look,
4.
I need more time.
The mysterious
The transfer
phone
hasn't
calls.
cleared yet.
One
If they
afternoon,
find out I used the
while
company
Emily
account,
is
I'm
folding
finished.
laundry, the house phone rings. A different number than she is used to seeing. The caller hangs up as soon as she answers. This happens more than once over several days. Eventually, a woman's voice on the line asks for Matthew in hushed tones. Emily, alarmed, presses for more information, but the caller ends the call abruptly. Margaret hints that she's overheard private conversations and alludes to family troubles ahead, making cryptic remarks at breakfast that only heighten Emily's anxiety. 5. Cracks in the facade. Emily's friends and neighbors start to notice her distracted manner. A close friend asks if she's all right, but Emily denies any problems, embarrassed and unsure how to even begin explaining her suspicions. At a PTA meeting, she hears a stray comment about Matthew's company facing tough times. When she asks Matthew, he deflects, claiming it's just gossip. That night, Emily searches for information online about Matthew's business and finds vague references to investigations and potential lawsuits, all of which he had hidden from her. 6. Financial shock. Emily's credit card is declined at the grocery store. She assumes it's a simple mistake, but when she calls the bank, she is told several joint accounts have been frozen for irregular activity pending further review. At home, a stack of late notices and reminders for unpaid bills grows, all previously handled by Matthew. Emily tries to confront Matthew, but he explodes in anger, accusing her of being ungrateful and nosy, shutting down any further questions. 7. Forced isolation. Feeling excluded even in her own home, Emily turns further inward. She begins to keep detailed notes, times, dates, everything odd she witnesses, hoping to make sense of the brewing storm. Margaret becomes more critical than ever, sometimes whispering on the phone or closing doors when Emily walks in. Feeling the walls closing in, Emily lies awake at night, piecing together fragments and wondering what else her husband and mother-in-law might be hiding. 8. The Prelude to Disaster. The chapter ends with Emily standing in the dim light of the hallway, listening to another hushed exchange between Matthew and someone on the phone. The words are muffled, but Emily catches phrases like, "Don't let her find out," and "cover everything." For the first time, fear outweighs her sadness. She senses the life she so carefully constructed is truly unraveling, and that the truth, whatever it is, threatens everything she holds dear. The crime covered up, Emily's world seemed to teeter on the edge, but nothing truly prepared her for the morning when her life collapsed for real. She woke to the shrill ring of the doorbell, a sound out of place in the sleepy calm of their home. With a sense of dread already coiling in her chest, she hurried down the stairs and opened the front door. 2 suited strangers stood on the porch, their stances formal and unreadable. One introduced himself as Detective Turner from the city's Financial Crimes Division, the other as an agent with the district attorney's office. Behind them, the neighbors' curtains twitched, curious eyes observing the disruption. Emily faltered on the threshold. "May I help you? We have a few questions regarding certain transactions associated with your name and household accounts," Detective Turner said, his tone measured. She felt the eyes of the neighborhood judging her already, a scene she'd only seen in movies or watched unfold on the news, never dreaming it would happen to her. She nodded numbly and led them inside, her mind whirling. Inside, Matthew and Margaret were already awake and in the kitchen. Matthew's face was a mask of innocent confusion, while Margaret affected a look of shocked concern. The officers presented a stack of documents, bank transfers, shell company filings, signed authorization forms, each page bearing Emily's signature, or what looked like it. As the detective explained, Emily's heart pounded in her ears. Large sums of money had been moved through their joint accounts into offshore entities, with suggestions of tax fraud and embezzlement. "But I never authorized any of this," Emily stammered. Her cheeks burned as the men fixed their eyes on her. Margaret drew in a dramatic breath, shaking her head as if she'd long suspected something. "Oh, Emily, say it isn't true." Her voice trembled with what sounded like genuine distress. But Emily noticed her mother-in-law's fingertips drumming impatiently against the tabletop. Matthew, meanwhile, turned solemn and wounded. "Emily, if there's something you need to tell us, now's the time." His performance was chillingly convincing. The room seemed to close in around her. The detective glanced at Matthew, then back at Emily. "We'll need you to come downtown later this week for an official statement. Please don't discuss any details of this case with anyone outside your family." The subtext was clear. She was a suspect, and her every move would be watched. After the men left, silence descended. Emily sat at the kitchen table, stunned. "Matthew, what is going on?" "You heard them.
Yes, it's just
They think you
wonderful.
did something
Chloe is
illegal,"
having the time of
Matthew
her
said
life.
coldly.
Oh, absolutely.
"Those are
The
your
kids
signatures.
loving it.
I didn't do this. You handle all the accounts. I don't even have access to most of these." "Matthew, please, you have to back me up." He cut her off, voice low and hard. "I suggest you get a good lawyer." Margaret rose from her chair
Yes.
with slow,
Yes, that's him.
heavy steps. "You've brought shame
swear
to
to
this
God,
family,
that's him.
Emily. I hope you realize what you've done to my son and to our reputation." Emily pushed back tears. She knew then that no one here would help her prove her innocence. In fact, she was entirely alone. The aftermath news travels quickly in the suburbs, especially bad news. Within hours, whispers circulated among neighbors. The polite, composed Emily Barrett under investigation for white-collar crime. Mothers at the school gate eyed her with new suspicion. Emily kept her head down as she dropped the kids at school, her hands trembling so badly she could barely grip the steering wheel. That night, Emily found herself summoned by a lawyer whom she had never met. Someone arranged, she realized, by Matthew's family. The meeting was little more than a formality. The lawyer recommended she plead guilty for a suspended sentence, suggesting that with her cooperation, the authorities might show leniency. Despair choked her. But I'm innocent. Someone has forged my signature or accessed our accounts without my knowledge. Please, you have to believe me. The lawyer offered her a sad smile, the kind reserved for lost causes. Emily, the evidence is overwhelming. It's your word against the paper trail and the testimonies of your husband and his mother. When Emily returned home, Margaret was on the phone in the living room, her voice dropping whenever Emily entered. Matthew barely looked at her, retreating behind his locked office door. The kids sensed something was wrong. Sophie asked, "Mom, are you okay? Why were the police here?" And Ben clung to her leg, silent but worried. Emily spent sleepless nights poring over photos of her children, rereading old emails and digital receipts, desperately searching for anything that could prove her innocence. With each passing day, another account was frozen. Another letter from the state or a creditor arrived. The authorities now threatened her with the loss of custody should she be convicted. The mere thought of losing her children sent her into panic. The setup. One afternoon, as she tried to clear her mind, in the backyard, she found evidence of Matthew's duplicity. A laptop, usually locked away in his office, sat unattended by the patio lounge. Heart hammering, Emily scrolled through browser history and discovered hours of searches on forging digital signatures, embezzlement prosecution, and how to frame someone for financial crime. There were even emails to an unnamed accomplice discussing our plan. Emily quickly took pictures with her phone, her hands shaking so badly the images blurred. It wasn't much yet, but it was something. Meanwhile, the pressure in the house grew suffocating. Margaret became crueler, sneering that real mothers don't get arrested. And Matthew's voice dropped to a dangerous whisper in the rare moments they spoke alone. Emily felt watched, even as she started to take quiet steps to protect herself and gather evidence. To her horror, Emily received a formal summons. She must appear before a grand jury next week. If indicted, she could be prosecuted for multiple felonies. The lawyer Matthew had chosen for her offered nothing but platitudes. Emily realized, with sickening clarity, they were willing to let her go to prison to save themselves. And Matthew had masterminded every step. A flicker of hope. With nowhere else to turn, Emily finally called an independent legal helpline, listed on the back of the summons. She blurted out her story to the woman who answered. Angela Reynolds, a sharp, compassionate attorney specializing in defending women in financial abuse cases. Angela listened intently, promising to meet Emily the next morning and review her situation. For the first time since her world began crumbling, Emily felt a faint surge of hope. The chapter ends with her standing in the shadows of her darkened bedroom, clutching her phone and whispering a vow to herself. They will not destroy me. I am not who they say I am. Outside, thunder rumbled in the distance, the storm of the coming legal battle now inevitable. But Emily was no longer wholly alone. The awakening, Emily spent the night alone, lying rigid in bed, her eyes fixed on the slip of
Honestly, I
moonlight
wish I
that
could help
crept
you out,
across
but
the ceiling. The
don't
silence
know
in
anything
her
about
bedroom
that.
was so heavy, it seemed to fill every crack in her heart. Exhaustion lapped at her, but it couldn't overcome the current of fear and helplessness. Questions swirled, hungry and relentless. How had Matthew orchestrated this? Why had she ever trusted him? Was she about to lose everything? But beneath the numbness, a faint ember stirred. A resistance, slow at first, but spreading in the dark. Morning arrived gray and unwelcoming. Emily moved through her routines numbly, packing the kids' lunches, brushing Sophie's hair, tying Ben's shoes. She forced a steady voice as they lingered by the door. Have a good day, angels. Remember, I love you more than anything. Sophie peered up, searching her mother's face, wanting to know the reasons behind the new sadness in her eyes. But Emily only pressed a trembling kiss to her forehead. After they left, an unfamiliar resolve pressed at Emily's
Get out of here
chest.
before someone sees.
She wasn't sure it was hope. Maybe it was desperation. But after weeks of simply surviving the blows Matthew and Margaret dealt her, she realized that waiting for someone else to save her was useless. If she fell, her children would fall with her. She couldn't let that happen. At 10 a.m., her phone lit up. A new number. Recognition flickered. Angela Reynolds, the attorney from the Women's Defense Hotline. Anticipation and anxiety collided in Emily's stomach.
Who is she?
She answered, her voice small but steady. Emily, this is Angela. I wanted to let you know I've cleared some time for coffee this morning. If you're able to get away. Emily met Angela at a small cafe set back from the main road, away from prying eyes. Rain pattered softly on the windows. Angela was younger than Emily expected, early 40s, with sharp but kind eyes, and a way of tilting her head as if she truly listened. She didn't bring a briefcase. She brought only a notepad and a willingness to hear the whole of Emily's pain. Emily's hands trembled as she recounted everything. The accusations, the forged signatures, the orchestrated isolation. She described Margaret's manipulations, Matthew's sudden transformation from cold to cruel, the lawyer who insisted she plead guilty. Angela listened without judgment, pausing only to note key moments or ask gentle questions. At last, Emily fished her phone from her purse and showed Angela the blurry photos she had taken of Matthew's laptop. A series of browser tabs with damning keywords. The partial emails discussing our plan. For the first time, she spoke the words she'd kept locked away. He's setting me up. I know it. I've always known. He's not who he claims to be. Angela's eyes sharpened. He's counting on your silence, your shame, your obedience. Because that's how men like your husband control women like you. Her voice softened. But you're here. You're not silent anymore. That's the first step in taking your power back. For a moment, Emily wanted to weep with relief. She felt seen, believed, something she hadn't experienced in years. Can I really fight this? She whispered. I'm so tired. I'm scared I'll let my kids down. Angela reached across the table. Her grip was warm and firm. Emily, you have more courage than you know. You've survived in a home where love was withheld and trust was betrayed. That takes enormous strength. Now you're ready to do more than survive. You're ready to fight back. That's why I'm here. The conversation shifted. Angela began outlining practical first steps. Emily needed to find, copy, and secure any document that could prove her innocence. Bank statements, emails, handwritten notes, anything. Angela promised to request immediate access to court, filings, and start background research on Margaret and Matthew. She offered a list of private investigators who were trusted and discreet. Your safety matters most. Angela said, her tone hardening. "If you ever feel threatened, you call me or the police immediately. Start carrying a notebook. Write down everything, every odd thing someone says, times and dates. That will become your second memory if this goes to trial." Emily nodded, shocked to find herself scribbling notes.
I saw the whole thing,
Logistics
officer, but
sharpened
I
her
can't testify. I have
focus.
a family.
She felt less like a victim, more like a witness to her own life. Hours later, Emily returned home, transformed by the simplest power. A plan. She tiptoed through the empty house, feeling the weight of the surveillance. Margaret eavesdropping from her bedroom, Matthew lurking in his office. In her own room, she sorted a stack of mail. Her fingers shook, but she kept going, noting discrepancies, setting aside envelopes postmarked from unfamiliar towns, photographing every statement, and tucking the originals into a folder she'd tape beneath the bathroom sink. That afternoon, Sophie and Ben came home. They chattered about school, Ben tugging Emily's sleeve, Sophie dramatically reenacting her music lesson. Emily laughed, surprising herself with the joy in it. For the first time in weeks, she felt present. But the house's tension found her quickly enough. Margaret cornered Emily in the kitchen, voice low and venomous. "It would have been better if you'd left years ago. Now look what you've done to this family." Emily, for once, didn't wither beneath the scorn. She met Margaret's gaze, steady and unafraid, choosing silence over tears. That night, as the household retreated to their rooms, Emily sat alone at the kitchen table. She laid out her notebook and began documenting everything. The times Matthew left the house, the phone calls Margaret took behind closed doors, every household expense she hadn't authorized. The act of writing gave her agency. She was building a case not only for court, but for the restoration of her own truth. Before bed, she checked in with Angela via text. Each message was met with clarity and encouragement. "You're not alone in this. We'll get through it together. Keep going, Emily." Hours later, Emily stood in the bathroom, peeling back the edge of the cabinet and nestling her file behind the pipes. Her eyes caught her own reflection. Tired, yes, and older, but also resolute. The woman in the mirror was familiar and new, a survivor, waking into her own power. She ended the night at her children's bedsides, smoothing Sophie's hair, kissing Ben's cheek. They slept soundly, unaware of the storm swirling around their mother, trusting completely in her strength. Alone again, Emily listened to the hush of the house and felt something fierce uncurl in her chest. Not just the desire to endure, but to win, for herself and for her children's right to a truth, untarnished by lies. She turned out the light with determination in her heartbeat. The battle had begun, and for the first time, Emily realized she dared to believe she could win. The legal battle, the first day of the legal battle dawned colder than the previous weeks. Clouds pressed low over the city, setting a somber mood as Emily dressed in her best navy blazer. She stared at her reflection, willing her trembling hands to steady. For weeks, she'd watched her own face sharpen with exhaustion and anxiety, but now her eyes carried a flinty determination. She would walk into that courthouse as more than a lost wife. She would fight as a mother and as a woman betrayed. Angela, ever prompt and composed, was waiting for Emily at the courthouse doors. The two women exchanged a brief, meaningful nod, less greeting, more packed. Together, they entered the imposing stone building. The echo of heels on marble floors, feeling both grounding and surreal. In the conference room, Angela laid out their strategy. "We're not just defending you against accusations, Emily. We're showing a pattern. Financial abuse, coercion, forgery, all orchestrated to leave you isolated and complicit. Our evidence doesn't just raise doubt, it exposes intent. Emily's phone vibrated with messages. Her mother, a few old friends, even a distant cousin. Most expressed disbelief. Some barely concealed their suspicion. The outside world had shrunk to headlines and speculation. Inside the courthouse, the stakes felt almost mythic. Matthew arrived flanked by his legal team, all crisp suits and cold eyes. Margaret trailed behind, a portrait of dignified martyrdom, casting icy glances Emily's way. If there was fear in Matthew, it was masked by arrogance. The pre-trial chess game depositions were tense and grueling. Emily endured hours of questioning from Matthew's lawyers, each phrase carefully crafted to cast her as careless, manipulative, even unstable. They pounced on minor inconsistencies, a forgotten email, a grocery purchase on an unfamiliar card. Angela, fiercely attentive, countered their every move. She produced witness lists, Emily's true friends, former neighbors, even a sympathetic banker who'd noticed the odd timing of Matthew's account restrictions. Private investigators uncovered evidence of Matthew's digital footprints, the search history Emily had photographed, emails sent at times when she could prove she was volunteering at Sophie's school or buying groceries with Ben.
Please be careful.
But the process took its toll.
Don't worry, I'll make sure
Emily's stomach was constantly knotted. She found herself doubting her memory, haunted by fear that a single poorly worded answer could doom her. At night, she found herself staring at the glow of the ceiling, cycling through every answer she'd given and every moment that could be used against her. Angela noticed the signs. After one particularly grueling prep session, she stopped Emily with a gentle hand. "You're not on trial for being perfect," she said. "You're fighting for your life, for your kids. Matthew wants you to implode. Emily, don't give him the satisfaction." Emotional traps in small victories. Matthew's side played dirty. They leaked stories to the local press, painting Emily as a high-living suburban wife, blind to her own greed. Margaret, never missing an opportunity for drama, called family friends in tears, spinning tales about Emily's supposed betrayals. The isolation grew suffocating. At school pickup, Emily saw mothers huddled in whispers, saw teachers, polite smiles, flicker with uncertainty. Still, each night she documented the day. Every provocation, every suspicious call, every supportive message from Angela. Small victories fed her hope. The private investigator discovered that a so-called independent witness for Matthew was actually a former co-worker he had paid off. A handwriting expert concluded that at least 2 of the suspicious signatures could not have been made by Emily. Her dominant hand, fractured in a car accident years ago, would have prevented the flowing script on the documents. Angela's cross-examination in preliminary hearings highlighted dozens of inconsistencies in Matthew's timeline. Even so, the stress wore Emily down. She snapped at Sophie for leaving a mess in the hallway, then apologized through tears. Ben asked shyly, "Mom, are we going to have to move away?" Emily hugged him fiercely, saying, "I promise, I'm doing everything I can for us." Turning the tide, the prosecution's offer came late one night. Plead guilty to a lesser charge in exchange for probation and no jail time. Angela laid out the facts. "They're scared, Emily. They're not sure they can win this. It's pressure. Think about your children's future. But know this, if we keep fighting, we have a real shot." Emily wavered. The promise of safety tempted her, but something fundamental had shifted. "If I plead guilty, I'm admitting to a crime I didn't commit. He will have taken almost everything from me, but not my truth." They pressed on. During discovery, a pivotal moment arose. Angela uncovered a hidden directory on Matthew's cloud account with records of forged documents and correspondence with an accomplice. Proof of intent to frame Emily and siphon money overseas. Angela was jubilant, but cautious. The information would need to be authenticated in court, and time was running short. Meanwhile, Margaret's mask slipped. In a moment of frustration, she shouted at Emily within earshot of Sophie, warning that no one will believe a word you say. Sophie saw, for the first time, a glimpse of the manipulations that had racked her mother, building toward the courtroom. The chapter closes as both camps prepare for trial. Emily, steeled and more resolute, sits at her kitchen table beneath the silent gaze of the family portraits. A family fractured by secrets, but with Emily, determined not to let her children inherit the lies. She studies her notes, rehearses her story, and draws strength from every small piece of truth she's managed to reclaim. Angela texts late at night. Emily replies, hands steady for the first time in ages. Outside, the wind stirs. The city sleeps, but within Emily, a storm has become a beacon. The battle is far from over, but for the first time, hope is not just a flicker. It is a fire, the truth exposed. The night before the trial felt endless. Emily lay awake, staring at the ceiling, her mind racing with every possible outcome. Outside, September rain lashed the windows. The house was silent except for the ticking of the clock in the hallway, a steady, unnerving reminder that dawn would soon bring her final reckoning. By morning, Emily moved with a calm, focused precision. She dressed in quiet blue, pinning back her hair the way she had for her wedding, the births of her children, and, she realized sadly, every crucial moment of her life. But this day was different. It was the day she would fight, not for her marriage or reputation, but for the truth. Angela arrived early, holding a slim document folder close to her chest. "They'll try one more time to rattle you," she said gently before they stepped into the courthouse. But all the facts are finally on our side. The courthouse was a world of its own, hushed, tense, trembling with anticipation. Neighbors crowded the public benches, whispering behind their hands. Matthew sat at the defendant's table, his expression stony, Margaret beside him, feigning concern. For the first time, Emily noticed the way Margaret's fingers twisted nervously in her lap. A crack in the armor. Opening statements seemed to blur. Prosecutors repeated the list of accusations. Fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy. The words echoed in Emily's ears, yet she refused to shrink beneath them. Angela countered, setting out her defense. "This is not the story of a greedy housewife," she began, her voice clear, "but a devoted mother systematically isolated, manipulated, and deceived by those she trusted most." Testimonies and tension witnesses paraded through the stand. Bank executives explained how signatures had triggered internal flags months before. Forensic IT specialists described traces of digital forgery on the Barrett house's Wi-Fi. Even the prosecution's expert admitted, under Angela's relentless cross-examination, that timestamps on several disputed authorizations did not match Emily's presence at home. She had been volunteering at her children's school or buying groceries with receipts to prove it. Matthew's turn finally came. Hands clasped, he gave the performance of his life. A wronged husband, painted by his lawyers as both victim and hero. When Angela stood for cross-examination, the room tensed. Calm and methodical, she dismantled his narrative. Who set up the offshore accounts? Emily handled all household paperwork. Matthew replied smoothly. Angela presented records showing the computer logins for those accounts occurred. During hours Matthew was working from home, while Emily was across town. And these emails referencing our plan. Can you explain how they were sent from your laptop? Angela's tone was razor sharp. Matthew faltered, just briefly. The jury noticed. The turning point. Then came the bombshell. Angela called a private digital forensics consultant who revealed the hidden cloud directory, the one containing documents drafted and signed digitally from Matthew's user profile. Moreover, the consultant detailed attempts to wipe the files, only for automated backups to archive them. With each revelation, Matthew's confidence wavered. Margaret shifted uncomfortably, a red flush creeping up her neck. But the final blow came when Angela called a surprise witness, Matthew's former co-worker, who had received hush money in exchange for fraudulent testimony. Threatened with perjury, the witness confessed, revealing Matthew's motives: desperation over impending bankruptcy, the need to protect family prestige at any cost, and a cold rationale that Emily would be safe if he could convince authorities she'd acted alone. For the first time, the courtroom buzzed with indignation. Against Matthew, not Emily. Margaret's downfall. Margaret's testimony was a disaster. Under pressure, she inadvertently admitted to coaching the children on what to say if questioned, and to shredding mail before Emily saw it. When Angela produced phone records showing long conversations between Margaret and Matthew's accomplice, Margaret broke down on the stand, blustering about protecting the family. In that moment, even the most skeptical jurors could see the web of lies unraveling. Emily's stand. When Emily finally took the stand, the room fell silent. She spoke plainly, with emotion but not self-pity, about her efforts to shield her children, the shame and fear of being accused, and the trembling isolation of watching her life evaporate beneath her feet. I believed, she said quietly, that if I was perfect, I'd be safe. I let myself shrink to fit someone else's idea of who I should be. I see now. I should have fought for myself sooner. Her words reverberated in the quiet. Angela's final questions guided her to the core. What do you want the world to know about you? I want them to know I'm not just what someone else wrote in an accusation. I am not invisible. I fought for my children, and I refuse to be erased. Verdict and vindication. The closing arguments were fierce. Angela summarized every thread: the digital footprints, the forged documents, the manipulation, the attempt to silence and frame Emily. She reminded the jury of Emily's character, her love for her children, her years of integrity. The jury deliberated just long enough to leave everyone on edge. When they filed back in, the courthouse barely breathed. The foreperson stood, face grave. We find Emily Barrett not guilty on all charges. A gasp swept the room. Emily's vision blurred with tears. Angela squeezed her hand, and for a moment, neither spoke. A simple, quiet triumph. Matthew sat motionless, his face pale, while Margaret sobbed openly, no longer capable of holding her composure. Prosecutors moved quickly, announcing that new indictments would be brought against Matthew and his accomplices for fraud and obstruction of justice. Neighbors slipped out quietly, shamefaced or silent, the gossip mill exposed for its cruelty. The aftermath afterward, as the press scrum descended and police escorted Matthew away, Emily hugged Sophie and Ben in the courthouse corridor. "We're okay," she whispered, finally believing it. "We're really okay." That night, in the small hours, Emily lay in bed, feeling the first peace she'd known in years.
Look at this bok choy,
She thought
madam.
of the girl she had
Just
been,
this morning, still covered in
dutiful,
dew.
afraid, always shrinking, and the woman she was becoming, one who had risked everything for the truth and won. Outside, dawn pushed past the storm clouds. It was not just the end of a trial, but the beginning of Emily's true life. A life, at last, that belonged to herself. Freedom. After the storm, the echoes of the trial's verdict still lingered in Emily's mind days after. Like a distant thunderstorm, finally moving off the horizon. For the first time in years, she awoke with a sense of possibility rather than dread. The house was quieter than before. The oppressive sense of surveillance and judgment replaced by something unfamiliar, yet gentle, a quality she realized, slowly, might be peace. Matthew's arrest was headline news for 48 hours. Gossip burned hot, then fizzled into silence as the legal process began to grind forward. Margaret, her composure shattered by the trial's revelations and Matthew's fall from grace, had gone to live with her youngest daughter in another state, leaving only a terse note and a lingering cloud of bitterness behind. The air inside the Barrett home felt subtly changed. Sunlight fell brighter and longer through the kitchen windows. Emily found herself reclaiming rituals that had previously felt burdensome, making breakfast beside Ben's cheerful chatter, listening as Sophie practiced her piano in the late afternoons. With each passing day, she felt as if she were returning, no, arriving, for the first time in her own life. A home transformed. It was a slow, sometimes awkward rebirth. Old habits lingered, like flinching at the ring of the doorbell or checking over her shoulder while folding laundry, half expecting Margaret's biting commentary or Matthew's cold, sidelong glance. But now, those ghosts had lost their power. The house, once haunted by tension, began to echo instead with gentle laughter, the sound of kids chasing each other, and the quiet, satisfying hum of everyday life finally lived without fear. The legal aftermath was daunting at first. There were debts to negotiate, accounts to close, paperwork to handle. Emily and Angela, now not just attorney and client, but trusted friends, spent hours at Emily's dining table, piecing together a path to financial stability. The fear of the unknown still woke her some nights, but compared to the terror and confusion she had endured for so long, the prospect of rebuilding felt manageable, something she could face, one small victory at a time, letting go and moving forward. On a gray Saturday, Emily walked room to room, gently boxing up Matthew's remaining things. His monogrammed stationery, a collection of cufflinks, old business files. Each item was a thread from a life she'd been expected to support but never truly owned. With every discarded suit and yellowed memory, the sense of weight on her chest faded a little more. Margaret's presence left its own subtle scars, family photos with her image carefully turned face down, a brittle china teacup Emily wrapped and placed in the donation box, the scent of her perfume fading from the guest room. These were relics of a battle hard fought. Emily realized, as she removed the last item, that letting go was not about erasing the past, but about making space for something new, a new kind of motherhood. Her relationship with Sophie and Ben changed in ways both delicate and profound. Ben, now less withdrawn, more boisterous, invited friends over without fear of being hushed. Sophie, keenly sensitive to the family's every mood, began to smile more, volunteering stories about school and dreams for the future. Bedtime no longer carried tension or unsaid worries. Instead, they invented bedtime rituals together, reading, sharing hopes for tomorrow, building secret handshakes. One evening, Sophie crept into the kitchen as Emily was finishing the dishes. "Mom?" Her voice trembled with vulnerability. "Are we safe now?" Emily knelt, drawing her daughter close. "We are," she promised. and we always will be. Nothing will ever tear us apart again. The words rang true, because for the first time, Emily truly believed them. New connections, new strength neighbors who had avoided Emily now returned. Some tentatively, some bearing casseroles and awkward apologies. Emily received each gesture with grace, but no longer needed their validation to feel secure. Her circle became smaller but warmer. Angela, loyal beyond the courtroom, became a regular fixture, sometimes sharing brunch, sometimes offering encouragement on fraught mornings. Therapy, once resisted, helped Emily process the years of gaslighting and control. She found herself rediscovering old passions, reading in the sunroom, painting late at night, running in the park with Ben and Sophie. She took classes in bookkeeping, determined to never again be excluded from the practical workings of her own life. Each skill gained was a stepping stone toward real independence, building toward the future. The journey wasn't perfectly linear. Some nights, Emily still woke from nightmares, breath caught in her throat, the echo of Matthew's accusations whispering through her dreams. But the claws of shame and doubt now rarely lingered. Instead, each new sunrise was an invitation to shape tomorrow, not as a character in someone else's story, but as the author of her own. She set goals to rebuild her finances, to create a welcoming home, to raise thoughtful, resilient children. She vowed never to shrink again for anyone's comfort, never to confuse self-sacrifice for love. Her journal, once a record of sorrow, became a place for planning and celebration. Each page a chronicle of survival, courage, and hard-won peace, a closing and an opening. On an early autumn evening, Emily gathered Sophie and Ben on the back porch. Over mugs of hot cocoa, they talked about next summer's possibilities, camping trips, art projects, learning to swim. The future sparkled with real options, not just empty hopes. After the children were tucked in, Emily stepped onto the porch, the cool air brushing her cheeks. She looked up at the stars above the quiet lawn, her heart steady,
I know, Emily.
her
Let's
mind
get this over
finally at rest. Life ahead was not guaranteed smooth. New storms might roll in, new fears might try to take root, but she now knew she possessed the strength to weather them. Inside, the house glowed softly, a place once shaped by suffering, now reclaimed through hope, effort, and unbreakable love. Emily smiled, a rare and genuine smile. As she locked the door behind her, she whispered to the darkness, "This is my life. I am free, no longer defined by judgment, betrayal, or survival." Her life was finally, gloriously her own.